What is something you did that you look back on and say, dang, I'm a horrible person? Back when I was in high school, I was over at my buddy's house. His older sister, who I thought was so cool, was also home. I always tried to be the funny guy back then, often speaking before thinking. Well, she had a boyfriend with cancer, so when I saw her I just asked, "How's cancer, boy?" Immediately, my heart sank into my chest. I knew I had said something awful. 10 years later, it still haunts me. When I was in high school, a girl with a disability, maybe mentally handicapped, I'm not really sure, started aggressively provoking me during a game of Uno. After seeing me try not to get mad and hold my tongue, she says, "Say it, Pete," to which I respond, "Fine, you freaking retard." It was not my proudest moment. Little did you know, she was actually trying to get you to say you know. When I was about 8 to 10, I can't remember when exactly, I was out shopping with my mum and there was this necklace stand with loads of necklaces on and mum said we could have one. There was another girl there with her mum and she pointed at this yellow daisy necklace and said she really wanted it. And her mum said, "Don't worry, you can have it, it'll be here when we get back." I got my mum to buy me that necklace. I don't even think I particularly liked it that much, but I must have wanted to deprive that other girl of having it. I must have wanted her to come back to the stall and see it gone. I wore it for a year or more, like every day. It might not sound like a big deal, but as a child, I think that was a pretty evil haha. Paging you, Joel. How antithetic Nicholas from the turn time. In 4th grade, I was climbing onto the jungle gym at recess after a hard rain the last night. A girl climbed up after me. I kicked her until she fell off with my muddy shoe. She was asking me to be her Valentine. She was in the special ed class. I'm a horrible person. I did something similar in kindergarten. Little boy named Brad had a crush on me. I was trying to avoid him and I climbed to the top of the jungle gym. He asked if I would be his girlfriend. I told him I would if he climbed up with me. He did. I promptly threw his butt off and into the gravel below us. A teacher watched me do it and I got a timeout. Brad didn't like me so much after that. I didn't want my little brother to come up to the fort with me and my older brother, so I rigged it so some bricks would fall onto his head when he was climbing up the ladder. I still obsess about how horrible that was and occasionally apologize to him to this day, but he laughs and doesn't remember. I really want to take back what I did because I just picture him as a sweet child that wanted to play with his brothers. I still tear up when I think about him climbing up the ladder and picture what he was thinking. I wish I could apologize to that little boy and been the older brother he deserved. Of course he doesn't remember it. He got hit in the head with some freaking bricks. When I was 8, I sold my 6-year-old brother a broken Walkman for $35 and made him sign a contract acknowledging the sale. When he found out that it was broken, he went crying to our dad, but I pulled out the contract. Dad, who is an attorney, said I couldn't be forced to give my brother's money back to him. More like your dad is a horrible person. I told my 6-year-old brother that Santa wasn't real. When he didn't believe me, I proved it by showing him where mum had stashed the presents. Hey, everyone, I just found my big sister on Reddit. When I was 16, I told my parents I was going to a friend's house for a sleepover. I had to be back early the next morning because that was the day of my grandpa's funeral. At said sleepover, I gave my first BJ and engaged in all sorts of other debauchery. The next morning, I was running late and had to rush to get home so I could ride in the limo with my family. It was only then, sitting next to my grandmother at her husband's funeral, that I realized there was CM on my black dress. The guy had apparently wiped his dong on the dress I had laid out to wear to the funeral. Even with an awful hangover and or possibly still a booze, I knew frick, I'm a horrible person. Ugh. And now I feel horrible all over again. TL. DR. 16 and hungover with jizz on my dress at my grandpa's funeral. I kept hooking up with him for a while, too. So many poor choices. In the 7th grade, everyone was into taking these ginseng pills. I have no idea why. One day my friends and I figured out that you could open up the pills and empty the powder in them. So I thought it would be funny to open up the pill and fill it with dirt and put it back together. The color of the powder was similar so no one could tell. After we got some poor sap to swallow it, I felt no joy and wondered why I even thought it would be funny. Anytime I see an unattractive person and judge them, I feel terrible about it, but it happens every time. And then I conclude that they're probably an awesome person and I'm being a huge dong. I feel worse when I see an ugly couple and I'm just like, dang, they're going to have an ugly kid, followed by what the frick, these people can find love but I can't. Around 5th grade or so, we had a horse chestnut tree in yard by the school I went to. A friend and I thought it would be funny to throw them at people. For those that don't know, these are like golf balls, maybe even harder. Anyway, I throw one at a kid and hit him dead square in the eye. Then to top it off, scared of trouble, I run off, leaving him laying there having just been hit in the eye without even knowing it was coming. I was caught and got in deep crap. Luckily no permanent damage. But I never did genuinely apologize. I am so sorry, Rick. Frick you, James. I was such a little bee in middle school. There was one time when a shy boy passed me a note asking if I'd be his girlfriend. Instead of saying no, thank you, I'm not interested, I wrote in all caps, no way, you are a nerd. What the heck was I thinking? He wasn't cute or funny, but he was always nice to me. He didn't deserve that. He didn't talk to me for years after that. I still feel guilty about it. My friends thought it was funny, but I can't believe that I ever treated someone so poorly. That was also the same year that I wrote comments judging everyone in my yearbook. There are some people who have their faces crossed out and there are some with stars around their pictures. I found the book recently and I've decided that once it warms up I'm going to burn it. I'm so ashamed that I was ever that awful. It's okay, Regina, it's in the past now. I used to work with a guy who I did not like. He was quite pompous and made it clear he looked down on me and my lifestyle, even though we were the same age. He also had appalling table manners. Our job meant a lot of travel and many nights in hotels, long shifts and the rest of it. It was a work hard, play hard life. One night we were having dinner in yet another local pub. I was my usual disinterested self, but he started to talk about how hard home life was for him at that time. His wife was not happy, he was not happy, and things were falling apart for him. He was welling up and said words to the effect of, "It seems ironic that you are the closest thing I have to friend. Yet I know you don't like me. I just need to talk to someone." He was on the edge of completely falling apart and needed a hand. My response: "You picked the wrong man, and it is your turn to buy dinner." Got up and walked away. The next day he did not show up at work and my boss told me he was taking some personal time to get a few things in order. I never saw him again because I left the company shortly after. I feel bad because even though I thought he was a dong, he was so broken that he was reaching out to me. I doubt anything would have changed by me talking to him and I don't feel guilt for walking away. However, I do know that if it happened again tomorrow I would stay there and let him talk. Just because he was a dong doesn't mean he wasn't human. And let's face it, we all need a friend sometimes. TLDR. Work colleague needed a friend to talk to. I walked out on him and made him buy dinner. I was around 11 years old and Pokémon was on everyone's mind back then in my school and in mine as well. There was this girl in my class who had this really rare glittery Mew Pokémon card. I wanted it so bad, so I told her I would guard the card if she put it in her bag during recess. She did and I stole it. She was super sad. Lost it a few days after. I still feel really bad. Don't feel too bad, it was a free card given out after the movie back in the day. It was a very mass-produced card. I had a heck of a time when I was 13 ripping coins off a little kid at Chuck E. Cheese's. Held the coin return down while he was putting the tokens in. When it wasn't starting for him, I encouraged him to keep going because maybe the machine just needed a few more coins to run. I got 15 coins off the kid. I thought it was hilarious. Got a bunch of loot that day, going to hack for it, too. I'm pretty sure this is just called capitalism. I was having some drinks and playing Cards Against Humanity a couple of months ago with a few friends and a couple that I don't know very well. Well, the game itself is practically designed to make you a horrible person. But anyway, I get this card that only reads fetus. I don't remember what I played it on, but ended up making some stupid joke about dead babies or something. Then realization sinks in on what I had just said, because I remembered that the couple they had just lost their baby to SIDS. I just felt like the worst person in the world. I still feel guilty about it and wonder if I should have apologized. Instead I just shut up and stopped drinking so I wouldn't say any more stupid things. TL. DR. When I was 19 I fricked a crazy girl and then did the coldest and most malicious thing I have ever done as an act of self-preservation. There's a very long story to this, but in essence I didn't actually like her. In all honesty, she was little crazy and a borderline stalker. She once carved my name into the wall of what was our workplace and kept trying to get me to go out with her. We shared a group of friends, so unfortunately it was difficult to avoid her without going semi-hermit, especially seeing as she was also my coworker. Anyway, one day she said a ton of our friends were getting together and she was having a party at her house. I was about to tell her I had other plans, because I actually did. But then I thought, frick it, I'll drop by for a bit, have a couple beers and head to the bar with my primary group of friends, which she did not belong to. When I got to her place, no one was there, just her. Then she said I was the first to show up. Later it became clear there never was a party. It was just a ploy to get me at her place. So we start drinking. I do my best to deflect her advances, but eventually I got drunk, and then I thought, what could possibly go wrong if I did frick her? So I did, which was one of my biggest mistakes ever. It was also unprotected. She said she was taking birth control. In my stupidity that seemed like enough justification not to put things on hold and buy some condoms that was only a block away. Full stop. So this made her go ultra crazy, and then she told she was pregnant. She actually was, and I later learned she never actually was on BC, and intended on keeping it, despite the fact she was a high school dropout with a dead-end job and no aspirations. As for myself, I was actually starting a pretty high-paying job, for an entry-level position that does not require any qualifications, 2 weeks down the road, and intended to save up for college, which this girl was threatening with all her baby talk. Neither of us were in a position to actually have a child in our lives, but she was either too stupid or too crazy to realize this. So what did I do? The only thing I could. I manipulated the crap out of her. I pretended I had a change of heart and actually liked her. Then I started dating her for about 2 or 3 weeks. I was very nice to her and let her believe we had a wonderful relationship and even let her make plans for our future. By this point she believed I genuinely loved her, or believed that one day I would, and that's when I convinced her to get the abortion. I drove her to the clinic myself, and waited in the lobby room to make sure she went through with the procedure. I dumped as I drove to drop her off at her place. Oh my god. Wished my best friend dead. He died. Wouldn't mind trading places. Before Schoolyard, my best friend and I used to have a field day with late night prank calls. We would pick up the phone book and find what we thought to be a married couple and call them. So we would call Jack and Jane Smith, and if a woman answered, we say Jacko, and promptly hang up. I realized we were truly horrible people when my friend called a woman pretending to be from a hospital and told the woman that her mother had been in a terrible accident. Threw a dodgeball at a kid in elementary school. He was playing like a punk. He wore a hearing aid. I aimed for that ear. Don't hate the player, hate the game. In high school, some friends and I were driving around in the middle of the night. We saw some orange construction barrels, so we proceeded to line them up in the middle of a dark, winding, 2-lane road. A friend of mine told me she almost died that night because some jerk made a wall of barrels in the road. I'm pretty sure those are designed so that you don't die if you hit them. Not saying you aren't a dong, but she probably would not have died. Oh man, I still feel awful about this one. I had a contractor come into work recently, and in the middle of the conversation he randomly looks really sad and says, "Looks like my cat is going to be put down." For some reason, this upset me, which then made me angry. I don't wanna know about your poor, dying cat. So I tersely replied, "What are you telling me for?" And he just crumbled, muttered something about just finding out, and then he made a quick exit, and I felt freaking awful. This poor bloke was probably really cut up about his poor, dying cat, and then the first person he tells is the receptionist who snapped at him about it, comma. I felt horrible when I realized what I'd said, and stressed about it all day. He eventually came back in for something else and I apologized profusely, but I still feel like a complete B. Sorry contractor dude, I didn't mean to be a B, comma. I've been in both of their shoes, the receptionist and the contractor. It sucks. Especially the contractor. Especially if he doesn't open up to a lot of people. Especially when he wants to get something off his chest that is important to him and other people randomly and rudely shut him down. I hate being the contractor most days. Not that the receptionist is a picnic, either. When I was in elementary school, my friend and I decided that we didn't like our other friend, so we would conspicuously give each other gifts in front of this friend, in order to make it very clear that she was being excluded. I don't remember why I didn't like her, and in retrospect, I realized that she was a much more interesting person than my other friends from the time. Whenever a friend gets mad at me, I know it's partially friendship karma asserting itself. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.